Thank you, Senator Gould. Senator Batters.
Mr. Morin, you attended with the Democratic Institutions Minister at this committee yesterday, and I was questioning the Minister in part about Bill C-76's lack of independence as between the Chief Electoral Officer and the Commissioner of Canada Elections. And at one point, you referred to a brief section of Bill C-76 which says that the Commissioner is independent. So as such, Mr. Morin, I have some other sections of Bill C-76 in that same area that I want to bring to the attention of this committee and to Canadians watching this today. So first of all, to compare, the current Elections Act under Section 509 sub 1 says the Commissioner of Canada Elections shall be appointed by the Director of Public Prosecutions to hold office during good behaviour for a term of 7 years and may be removed by the Director of Public Prosecutions for cause. And then sub 2 says the Director of Public Prosecution shall not consult the Chief Electoral Officer with respect to the appointment of the Commissioner. Sub 3 says a person is not eligible to be appointed as Commissioner if the person is or has been, and among other things in there it says D, the Chief Electoral Officer, a member of his or her staff, or a person whose services have been engaged under a certain subsection. So that's what the Act says right now with the Fair Elections Act changes included in it. But then Bill C-76, Section 351 sub 1, provides for a new Section 509 sub 1 that says, quote, the Commissioner of Canada Elections shall be appointed by the Chief Electoral Officer after consultation with the Director of Public Prosecutions to hold office during good behaviour for a non-renewable term of 10 years and may be removed by the Chief Electoral Officer for cause. Sub 2 says the Commissioner shall be paid the remuneration that is fixed by the Chief Electoral Officer after consultation with the Director of Public Prosecutions. 509.1 sub 1 in the new Act would provide that the position of the Commissioner of Canada Elections is within the office of the Chief Electoral Officer. Sub 2 says, for the purposes of Sections 11 to 13 of the Financial Administrations Act, the Commissioner is the deputy head in relation to the portions of the federal public administration in the office of the Chief Electoral Officer, in which employees referred to in Section 509.3 occupy their positions. And Sub 3 says, for the purposes of the Public Service Employment Act, the Commissioner is the deputy head in relation to the portions of the federal public administration in the office of the Chief Electoral Officer, in which the employees referred to in Section 509.3 occupy their positions. Going down to the part you were quoting from yesterday, independence under the Bill C-76, new 509.21 sub 1 says, all decisions made and actions taken by the Commissioner under any provision of Part 19, which is the enforcement provision, are to be made or taken independently of the Chief Electoral Officer. But then there's a clarification in new sub 2, which says nothing in that subsection that I just read precludes the Commissioner from consulting with the Chief Electoral Officer in respect of any matter if the Commissioner considers it appropriate to do so. And then as well, new 509.5 says the Commissioner may authorize a person employed in the office of the Chief Electoral Officer to assist the Commissioner in the exercise or performance of any of his or her powers, duties, and functions arising from subsections, blah, blah, blah. So I think those are important to note today. And frankly, Mr. Morin, I'm wondering how you respond to all of this. I mean, you can't simply say in one small part of the Act that the Commissioner is independent from the Chief Electoral Officer, and then on hiring the Commissioner, on determining the Commissioner's, quote, good behaviour, on firing the Commissioner, on determining the remuneration of the Commissioner, on location of the Commissioner's office, every single one of those key elements is determined by the Chief Electoral Officer. I mean, frankly, I was actually kind of stunned to read all this morning. And frankly, I think this government needs a definition of independence that actually bears some resemblance to the actual definition of independence.
Well, thank you for these comments, Senator From.
Batters, actually.
Batters, sorry.
Freudian slip.
Yes. Well, first of all, the Commissioner will be appearing right after us, and I think it should be a good idea for you to ask him about how he feels about the degree of independence that Bill C-76 would allow him. With regards
to, but I want your impression
absolutely,
because you gave me this independence definition yesterday.
Absolutely. Well, I think that this definition of independence for all decisions and actions taken by the Commissioner under Part 19 of the Act is key in terms of independence in decision makings with regard to enforcement and prosecution matters under the Canada Elections Act. Furthermore, I would say with regard to the other provisions that you have mentioned, that they really talk about the financial administration and human resources of the Office of the Commissioner of Canada Elections, which is not a department under Schedule 1.1 of the Financial Administration Act. So the Office of the Commissioner needed to be positioned under a department under that schedule for financial and human resources matter. And I think that this is the intent of the government, that the Commissioner report to an officer of Parliament rather than to an officer who reports to the executive. And furthermore, you asked yesterday about whether the Commissioner could be investigating against an officer or an employee of the Chief Electoral Officer, and absolutely so. I would also like to point out to Section 509.4 of the Canada Elections Act that is not being amended by Bill C-76, which provides that the Commissioner may engage on a temporary basis investigators or persons having technical or specialized knowledge to advise and assist him or her in the exercise or performance of his or her powers, duties, and functions under the Act. And in closing, I would also like to mention that, yes, Bill C-76 allows the Commissioner to lay charges directly without the prior approval of the Director of Public Prosecutions. That being said, the Commissioner is not the one leading the prosecution, so that responsibility still rests with the Director of Public Prosecutions, who will lead these charges in court. And in the end, any offense related to the Canada Elections Act will be determined by the courts themselves, right? It's not an administrative matter, it's a criminal matter. So.
Okay, just one brief question to close. Mr. Morin, you've taken all the questions today. Madame Paquette hasn't. I see that you're both listed as senior policy advisors within the Democratic Institutions Secretariat of the Privy Council office, and I'm just wondering if you are both, like, you are responsible for certain different portions of the Act, or I'm just wondering, Ms. Paquette, what's
we just
role?
divide. Thank you for that question. Yeah, we work together on this file. Jean-François is the lawyer, so he's better placed to take most of the questions that a committee has, and I'm also working on the development of the bill and supporting the minister in the process.
Merci, Madame la Sénateur.